I wasn't planning on making a video until the new year, till I got back to college, but this was too juicy. With that being said, I find it very interesting as even before Donald Trump is sworn into his second term, you're already finding divisions within the new MAGA movement. That just goes to show in politics how easy it is for a political movement or idea to rise. It's just as easy for it to fall down. With that being said, so Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk, who are on this new government Department of Government Efficiency team appointed by Trump to cut out, unnecessary spending and whatnot. They've gotten themselves in quite the bit of heat these past couple days on Twitter on the topic of immigration. And I'm just going to read out what Vivek said because I find it very interesting to say the least. He goes, "The reason top tech companies are often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over Native Americans isn't because of an innate American IQ deficit. A key part of it comes down to the C word, culture." And then he goes on to say that American culture is not at the same level as many other cultures in the world. And he gives examples. He goes, "A culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers." That's a very crazy statement Vivek is saying, considering he belongs to the party that is very openly the patriotic party of, America's the best and American can do no wrong. We are number one, right? Um, I don't agree with Vivek on a lot of things, but this is one of those things where I kind of agree with him on the sense of culture, right? Um, culture is a very, very, very um, let's call it thin ice in terms of politics. You have to be very careful with what you're talking about, but this is how I kind of sort of interpret it. So let me first ask you the question, right? Is there such thing as a bad culture? Um, Immediately, you're probably going to say, no, there's not a bad culture. Culture just is. I might practice my religion, you might practice your religion. I speak this language, you speak that language. We have these different norms, but we operate differently. That's just what it is. But then I say, okay, what about ISIS culture? What about terrorism culture? What about, you know, any, these types of cultures, war culture, whatever. Then you're going to start to say, okay, ISIS culture is bad. Maybe that's a very, very easy thing to say for a lot of people. ISIS culture is bad. Okay, now that you're able to recognize maybe a bad culture, that opens the floodgates to say, hey, culture can be criticized. You can definitely criticize culture. But the problem then becomes criticizing culture very quickly. I mean, super quickly, almost immediately, turns into racism and xenophobia. So it's a very, very thin line. That's why a lot of politicians don't dare to even touch that line of criticizing culture rather than just being openly racist or bigoted or xenophobic or whatever buzzword you'd like to use. So I guess since I have stake in this, obviously I'm a first generation American. My parents are immigrants from Asia. I think I have a little bit of knowledge to spill. I guess I'll start off first with why are Asians so considered, the model minority, right? Why have we been given this moniker? I mean, it all goes back, right? How did we get to this country in the first place? The biggest mass migration of Asians to this country happened all the way in 1965. Yeah, not really that far, but 1965 is the date I put it, and that the reason why that year is so significant is that's when actually Lyndon B. Johnson, the president at the time, signed the Nationality and Immigration Act, which completely revamped immigration and still applies in many ways to this day. And what that basically did was it said, okay, any country doesn't have to be Europe anymore. Any country can immigrate to this country, but there's a catch. You can't just immigrate to this country just because you want to. You need um, proof. You need to show your allegiance to America. Why will you be a benefit to America? For most people, education. I'm coming to this country to study at this university. Give me my visa. My mom lives here. I want to help her economically. Get me here. Those are the two most popular reasons: scholarship to study here, or I got family that lives here. So then put yourself in the mindset of an immigrant, right? I interact with so many immigrants, right? I'm coming to this country for what? Economic reasons. I'm hardworking. I'm ready to make a name for myself. I was living a shit life in my home country. I want to make it out. So that culture in itself has manifested and grown. I often think about this relates heavily to the GI Bill, where a lot of World War II veterans and um, veterans in general were given free college tuition to the college of their choice by the government. And so now that you have all these college educated veterans and they have their children, do you think that they're just going to say, hey, son, you don't need to go to college? No, they're going to tell them go to college. And now you have college as a norm in American culture. But let's say, hey, you know, let's criticize American culture. Is that possible? And I think for sure it is possible. But I think Vivek goes a little too far, Um, I would say I was definitely part of the nerd crowd, so to speak. Just because of lack of better word, I'll call myself that. I was very driven. I wanted to do good academically. I didn't really care much about sports or appealing to people or being well known or things that Vivek says is promoted in American culture. And obviously, I think I've adapted that from my parents. That would be silly of me not to say that. Um, but I don't think that's the dominant culture. I don't think that everybody should follow that path. I think it's good that America rewards creatives, rewards sports, rewards entertainers. Hollywood is still, the big thing. Everybody watches the new, Avengers movie, the new Oppenheimer movie, right? There's no, we are the lead in, what terms of culture. And I think that's something that we should be proud of. I don't think it should just be, we have the best engineers, the smartest people, we're putting people on the moon. Obviously, we should celebrate that, but I think it's very powerful and very good to say, hey, you know what, Hollywood culture, mainstream culture, we dominate. I mean, look at all these black artists who are excelling and doing great things in the music industry. I don't think, everything should be down to engineering, business, innovation, academia. That's not like if you want to prioritize that, like I just don't think it's a healthy system in terms of, you know, um, wanting a holistically good culture, right? I mean, people say, "Oh, China's beating us. China's beating us." I mean, when's the last time you watched a Chinese movie? When's the last time you listened to Chinese music? But I'm sure over there, that's all they care about. That's all they watch is our music, our culture. That's our culture, and I think there's something very that's something we should be proud of, and I think that should be something, um, you know, funneled in. And so you have the far right people of this movement saying, hey, like the super far right, forget Vivek, the super far right saying, Vivek, you're not prioritizing Americans, you just want Indians and Asians and Chinese people and Filipinos, whatever you call it, to come to this country and steal all our jobs and not prioritize Americans. I see it on my college campus too, right? We have a ton of international students. I know, do I think most of these students are going to come here and contribute to America? I'm not sure. I haven't seen a credible research study, but I gotta say, I do like what Trump says in the sense where, if you come to this country and you pursue a 4-year degree, you should be entitled to a green card. That makes sense in my eyes. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me why we could call ourselves the best country but close our doors to the best talent. And I think Vivek has a little bit of merit when he says what he says. Now, I think he goes a little too far in saying that, American culture celebrates mediocrity and this and that. I disagree. Like I said, we celebrate way more than just academia. And I think that's a good thing. Coming from someone who is only in the field of academia and wanting to be, you know, excellent in education or whatever the case is. I think we should be equally as proud that you know we want people to be better engineers, better business accountants, whatever, but at the same time we should also realize that America is the cultural hub of the world and we lead that torch. All the best movies, the best music, the best entertainment comes from America, and that's something we should be equally as proud of. So to criticize America and American culture is totally okay. I get it. The education system here is not the best. It's far from the best, if anything. And I think placing a better and more, you know, emphasis on the idea of wanting to do academically well, I think that's also good. but to say that America is completely garbage and Asian Americans and Asians are gonna just out excel us and they should, and you know, obviously that's the far right argument, but there's always a middle ground that we can say, hey, you know, this is what I think is should be right. With that being said, I guess just to close out my thoughts, I think moving forward, the best solution would be to say, hey, you know what? We do fail. We should be doing way better academically as a country. But maybe, you know, instead of pointing the finger at this group or that group, you might want to look inside, maybe look within. What can I do? What can I do to my community? What can I do for my culture, my ethnicity, my race, the people I call similar to me? How can I be a leader? How can I show that, you know, I'm a titan? I will always go back to the quote from JFK, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And I think, to my fellow peers in Generation Z and the young adults of the world, don't look at these politicians and say, I support what this guy says or what she says, and this policy needs to happen for this country to succeed. Because ultimately that will only lead to finger pointing. I think the best solution would be to, point that finger back at yourself and say, hey, what can I do to make this country a better place? How can I lead my peers? How can I lead my group, my tribe, whatever? How can I be a leader? How can I lead by example? And whether that's being the best engineer or the best rapper or entertainer, go right ahead. Um, but yeah, I don't support the idea of generalizing people or generalizing culture, because culture is, like I said, just as easy it is to criticize it, it is very easy also to step that line and to say racism or anything like that. So with that being said, thank you for watching. I will see you soon.